So week to week, Darren Farwell and the Farwell Group participate in the show and are our GPS on investing tax efficiently for our retirement. And last weekend, Darren was with us and he gave us Gloria's story. And it ended up being a part 1 and a part 2. Gloria was widowed at 83 and speaking to Darren at 87. And she was losing sleep because she was losing money and she felt that she might outlive her savings. And there was 2 parts to this because one, her income was declining and Darren looked at that, figured out why, and redirected her investments so that the money went in the right place and she didn't have to lose sleep about not having enough money. However, the other part was death and taxes, and we didn't have time last week to talk about it. So I have Darren Farwell of the Farwell Group with me this morning. And Darren, what about death and taxes?
Yeah, it seems to be a topic that's been with us from time immemorial, death and taxes. And last week I did begin sharing the story of Gloria and her experience with being a widow and her proactive can-do attitude and staying on top of things and really just going out proactively and learning what she didn't know. We've said many times you don't know what you don't know, and Gloria wasn't happy with it. She wanted to figure out those things that she didn't know. And I want to pass along to our from a woman's perspective listeners that if you are a widow and would like help with what can be an overwhelming amount of stuff to deal with, some of which you're not necessarily familiar with, please feel free to call and speak with me. Me and my team at the Farwell Group have a process and tools designed specifically with the needs of widows in mind. So back to Gloria. And by the way, Gloria has 2 capable sons that she worked with on her ex-husband's estate in the first place. But Gloria wanted to take control herself. She wanted to educate herself, and certainly applaud her to that. So Gloria came to me, as you mentioned, Marilyn, with 2 concerns. Her income was declining, which caused her to dip into her savings, which also began declining, and Gloria didn't like that. And number 2, Gloria was hearing a lot about death taxes from her friends, and she was concerned for her beneficiaries. Last week we reviewed in detail how we worked with Gloria and her investments to both increase her return without taking on significantly more risk and reducing the tax she paid on her investments so she could keep more of what she earned. With a little financial engineering, we made that happen, and Gloria was sleeping better at night, confident she's not going to outlive her savings. This week, I'd like to focus on that issue that seems to be always with us, death and taxes. Now, Gloria hadn't felt like taxes were a big issue when she and her son settled her husband's estate. And quite frankly, they probably weren't, because the tax burden on the death of one spouse with a surviving spouse is generally not onerous. Now, it's important to understand that's general advice. In order to understand what your individual situation is, it would be important to go and speak with your individual advisor to professional advisor to understand what the tax implications would be on the death of one spouse. Now, however, on the death of the second spouse, there definitely is reason to think about tax because of probate taxes. It's actually called a probate fee, and deemed disposition. Let's cover probate tax. There is a probate fee on the value of all assets that go into a deceased's estate. In Ontario, that's about 1.5%, so $15,000 per $1 million of assets. Now, for many estates, this isn't a significant number, but why pay it if you don't have to? Gloria and I discussed ways to avoid the probate. Number 1, ensure that all of your registered accounts have proper named beneficiaries. And by the way, make sure that the name of the beneficiary on your beneficiary forms is exactly the way it appears in a driver's license or passport, because sometimes it can get really sticky that the beneficiary name on the form is different than what the passport or driver's license says. But make sure you have a named beneficiary on all your registered accounts. That's RSPs, RIFs, LIFs, and importantly these days, tax-free savings accounts are also included in our list of registered accounts, so make sure your tax-free savings accounts have a named beneficiary as well. Number 2, for certain circumstances, and again, this is a sticky one. You really need to think about this one really carefully, but move assets into a joint name. You would need to consult your professional because I say there's lots of reasons why you might not want to move an asset like your investment account or a rental property into a joint name. However, if you do so, on death, assets pass directly into the other joint account holder. And because they pass directly to the other joint account holder, it avoids probate. Doesn't necessarily avoid tax, but avoids the probate fee of approximately 1.5%. So that's probate. It's not complicated, but nor is it simple, and really worthwhile speaking to a professional about what you can do to minimize the amount of probate you have to pay. Number 2, the second type of tax is as a result of deemed disposition. On the death of the second spouse, all assets held are deemed to be disposed of, sold on the date of death. Whether you actually sell them or not doesn't matter. For tax purposes, they're deemed to be sold. So for example, if you bought stocks and you paid $20,000 for the stocks, but on death they were worth $40,000, there's a capital gain owed of $20,000. If you had a rental property that you paid $250,000 for, but on date of death it was worth $1 million, whether you sell that property or not, the capital gain is owed between that $250,000 and $1 million. If you had a mutual fund that you paid $50,000 for, but on death it was worth $120,000, that $70,000 in capital gains is owed on death, whether it's sold or not. Now, this is a difficult tax to avoid, but with proper planning, it can be managed and minimized. So Gloria and I spent some time with her accountant reviewing some alternative strategies I had suggested to find the ones that were right for her specific tax situation. So now we've got a plan. And it's a plan that provides clear proof to that thing that we say so often, it's never too late to have a plan. So Gloria's happy because her estate will be paying less tax, and her 2 sons, well, I've met them both. They certainly won't be happy to lose their second parent, but it's a cycle of life thing, and they may be able to pass some of Gloria's legacy down to their own kids.
So it sounds so complicated. And the idea that it's never too late, it actually, I think, is timely, no matter what your age, to look at the options because the tax laws change, the investments change, and it is so complicated. So if someone is sitting there thinking about their financial plan and the death and taxes portion of it, and they want your advice, how do we reach you?
I'd be glad to take a call at 416-863-7501.
416-863-7501. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. And there are ways and means of avoiding taxes legally. All you have to do is speak to a financial planner who has that in mind and understands it. And Darren and his team are used to dealing with widows and widowhood and financial plans for people who want to take control of their lives and their finances. So thank you, Darren. I hope that I know that you'll join us again next Saturday and tell us more about how to invest tax efficiently. Maybe you'll have another happy story for us.
I'd be glad to. And just so our listeners will know, Gloria really wasn't in the mood to come downtown Toronto, so we arranged to meet her at a local bank branch. So for some people, it's easier just to come out and meet at a local bank branch than have to make the big trip downtown.
So It doesn't matter where. It's a matter of wanting to be proactive and taking charge of your life. Take down the number and call Darren at 416-863-7501. Thanks again, Darren. And now Dr. Betty Rosendahl of Thornhill Naturopathic Clinic will join us, and she'll talk about dealing with candida naturally, followed by happy stories from others of my team. It's all from a woman's perspective, so you're empowered to make informed decisions right here on Zoomer Radio.